In this lecture, we are going to understand about class loading in Mule4. Firstly, we'll try to understand some problems related to class loading, and then we'll understand how Mule4 addresses them. Okay, so let's take an example. Firstly, you should understand that Mule is developed on top of Java, and Java uses class loaders to load the Java classes, right? So let us take an example. Let's assume that I am writing my Java app, not Mule app, okay? My Java app. And my Java app, let's assume that it is using some third-party library called as Apache Commons. And the version which I want to use is 2.1 version. So my application wants to use a library called as Apache Commons 2.1. And my application also is dependent on some other third-party jar, let's say x.jar, which I add as a Maven dependency. Okay. But this x.jar internally is using Apache Commons 3.1. So there are conflicting requirements. My application requires 2.1 and this x.jar requires 3.1. So if I'm configuring all the dependencies using Maven, what happens is my application dependency will be given preference. So Apache Commons 2.1 jar comes first in the class path. So 2.1 version jars only will be used. So whenever a class belonging to this x.jar tries to load the corresponding Apache class, which requires 3.1 version, but actually what gets loaded? 2.1 class gets loaded. So there is a conflict and my application may result in some exceptions, unexpected exceptions. This is a problem of class loading. But how does Mule handle it? In Mule4 especially, not in Mule3, we have modules. Everything is a module in Mule4. We have Java module, database module, SOAP module, etc. Right? So every module might be using some third-party classes, right? Suppose a database module is using some lot of third-party jars. And say SOAP module is also using lot of third-party jars, right? Every module in Mule4 will have its own class loader. A separate class loader will be used by Mule to load module specific classes. So I'll call these as artifacts. Module is one Mule artifact, right? And Mule application also is one Mule artifact. So for each artifact there will be a separate class loader used by Mule. Okay. Now whenever there is an artifact, each artifact may be internally using some third-party jar. Let's assume db jar is using a.jar of version 2.1 and SOAP is using, let's assume, a.jar of version 3.1. It is possible, right? In this cases, actually, it will be good if whatever classes loaded by db module are not visible to SOAP module and vice versa, right? So in Mule, each module should explicitly define their public API. What do I mean? Every module should explicitly declare what all packages and resources it wants to expose. Packages and resources which it wants to expose. Only those will be visible to other modules or other artifacts. Okay, confusing? Let me show you. See, this is a Mule project which I have, and I have added modules like Java module here and also sockets module and Spring module here, right? So if I just open the XML, you can see on the Mule palette what all modules. Java module is added, Spring module is added, and HTTP and sockets module will be there by default. Now let us see HTTP module. In HTTP module, these are the third-party jars used by HTTP module, and here this is the main jar, Mule HTTP connector plugin. So if I expand this under meta inf mule artifact, there is mule-artifact.json. So this mule artifact.json is present in meta inf folder of class path. These jars are in class path. So this mule artifact.json, here you can see in this JSON is specifying exported packages. What all Java packages should be visible to other artifacts of the Mule runtime, right? These all. So whatever packages are not listed, they are not visible. So if you see this one, it is internally using Jakarta Mail and Common Slang. Are these packages of Common Slang and Jakarta Mail exposed? No, it's exposing only org.mule.something, right? So whatever this HTTP module, whatever classes this HTTP module wants to expose to other modules or other artifacts, they are listed. Others will not be listed. So when HTTP module is being used, some classes related to Common Slang 3-3.7 also will be loaded. By whom? HTTP module specific class loader. And those classes loaded by this module may not be visible to the class loader loaded by Java. So here you can see Java module, HTTP module is using Common Slang Lang 3.7, but Java module is using 3.8.1. See? So whenever class loader of HTTP is loading, it will load from these jars, right? So, but these jars, whatever are being used by HTTP module, will not be available publicly. Only these classes will be available publicly or visible publicly, right? Okay. So similarly, even in Java module also, here if you see, this is a main jar, meta inf, there will be mule artifact.json here. Here what is it exporting? Only this package, right? So actually the class loader for this Java module may load these Java classes. The Java classes inside this jar are not visible to any other artifacts. This Java module exposes only classes belonging to this package only, right? So let me tell you clearly, this is going to be my Mule runtime. Okay. Inside Mule runtime, we deploy various artifacts. Okay. Mule runtime, and inside Mule runtime, I deploy my application. My application also is an artifact. So Mule runtime is nothing but a Java application. So whenever any Java application is starting, we can specify what is a system class loader. System class loader. So Mule runtime has its own system class loader. Okay. So let me show you. So here I have just opened this Mule container. So here you are seeing Mule container system class loader. This is the default class loader. So whenever Mule runtime starts, it's a Java application. and there is a class loader for the runtime, right? So Mule, what is that? Mule container system class loader. And there are other class loaders. If I just press Ctrl Shift T and I'll say star class loader, there is something called as Mule artifact class loader. So this is the artifact class loader, and there might be some subclasses to it. This is an artifact class loader which actually is responsible for loading each artifact. So the classes belonging to my application will be loaded by whom? Mule artifact class loader. And inside my app, again, each module is an artifact. Let's say this is a Java module, and this is a database module. So each module also is an artifact. So each module will have its own class loaders. So if you know, in Java, classes loaded by one class loader are not visible to other class loaders. Actually, for all these class loaders, the parent is the Mule specific class loader, whatever I showed you. So here, what is it? Mule container system class loader will be the parent. So the concept is the classes loaded by parent will be visible to child. But one parent can have multiple children. So whatever classes are loaded by children 1 will not be visible to classes loaded by child 2. So that is the concept. But whatever classes loaded by parent will be visible to all the children, right? So who is a parent for all the class loaders? My Mule runtime is having a parent class loader that will load all the common libraries to Mule, right? Whatever. Then application classes will be loaded by a Mule artifact class loader. There is a child to this parent. Modules also will be loaded by a different child class loader. So now whatever classes belonging to Java module will be loaded by this Java module specific class loader. But Java module is exporting some classes, right? Only these classes will be visible to other class loaders, right? App class loader or so. So app class loader, whenever your app wants to use anything in Java module, it can invoke methods on classes mentioned in these packages. It cannot invoke or load classes other than this, right? So the app, whenever we are trying to use Java module, the app will only be able to instantiate the classes present only in this exported packages. That class, right? That class, it will set the module class loader. This class actually will be using the Mule artifact class loader to load rest of the classes. So the classes loaded by Java module will not be visible to the classes loaded by this database module specific class loader. That's how class loading isolation is done, right? One more thing, my app also is an artifact, right? Suppose if I have some Java classes or anything present in my app, see here, my application is having some Java classes. There's a class called as hello world with a one static method, and in my application what I'm doing is I am using Java module specific invoke static operation, and I'm trying to invoke a method on this hello world class. So who has to load this class? Class belonging to Java module has to load hello world. But will it be visible by default? No. So if you see, what happens in Mule is this, my Mule application also is an artifact, right? If you see in my target folder, once I actually package my application, whatever under meta-inf will be in the jar of my application. Here my application specific mule-artifact.json is there. You can see here automatically whatever classes or packages I am using, com.witlearn is written inside exported packages, and my XMLs are exported using exported resources. Only this XML and only these classes listed under this package will be visible to other modules. So my class is present in this com.witlearn online package. So the hello world class will be visible to my Java module, right? So that is the concept. So hope you are understanding how class loading isolation is done. So here I am clearly showing HTTP module. If I expand this, HTTP module is using common slang 3.7, Java module is still using 3.8 common slang, but still there is no conflict. It is because of this class loading, right? So I'll ask you a simple question. Let's assume that I want two applications. Application A is a Mule application, application B is a Mule application. There are some shared flows, some reusable flows. I want reusable flows for both. Let's assume that I have abc.xml, and this XML is containing some flows which can be reusable in both applications A and B. So what I did, I created an application called as C, and in application C I have this XML. Now whatever abc.xml is present in C, I want it to be reusable in A and B. What I can do is I can use mvn install for this application C. I package and install it. So what happens? C.jar will go into your local Maven repository, right? Then in A, what you can do is you can add C as dependency. In B also you can add C as dependency, right? But once you install C.jar, this abc.xml will be configured as exported resource in this C.jar, right? That means if I add C as dependency in A, abc.xml will be visible to my application, right? Then what I have to do in my application A is go to global element, create, and then import, and you have to specify what resource to import. It is in class path, so you can just give abc.xml. So I configured import a resource called as abc.xml. Where is it? Yeah, here it is. Import file is equals to abc.xml. Now this abc.xml is not in this current project. It might be in a dependency, whatever. It might be in a dependency added as Maven dependency here. And now I'll be able to reference the flows in abc.xml. So let me show you one example. What I did is I created an app called as shared flows app, and here is XML which is containing one shared flow called as my shared flow. And of course, don't worry about what I have. I just have a simple logger here, nothing much. Okay. Then I want this application to contain only shared flows, right? So what I have to do is I have to install it. I have to do Maven install so that a jar will be generated. So what I do is I'll go right click on the project, run as, run configurations, and then I'll say in Maven command line arguments, I'll say install and run. Once I install and run, what happens is Maven install will be executed, and then in my .m2 folder, repository, and what is the artifact name actually according to pom.xml? com.mycompany.sharedflowsapp. So I'll go to com folder, my company folder by default, and here it is shared flows app, and inside this I have the jar file. Now this is available in my Maven repository. This I have to add as a dependency to one more class, one more application. So what I did is I went to another application in the pom.xml, right here. What I did is I added the dependency. This is how you need to add group name, artifact ID, version, whatever by default here, whatever was there with 1.0.0.0 snapshot earlier, right, for this my shed. And then packaging type is Mule application. Here I have to give same thing while adding. Classifier is Mule application. This is an artifact of type Mule application. Then one thing, if I just add it as a dependency, I'm adding it as a dependency to my app, but it may not be visible to other modules. So if you want this dependency to be visible to other artifacts, whether it is your app as an artifact or any other artifacts, what you have to do is you have to add it in the shared libraries again here. So in this Mule Maven plugin, here under shared libraries, we have to add this as a shared library. Here I am saying this library is a shared library for my application as well as this module. So this module is using, right? So I have to do. Then what I did is in this other separate application called as class loading application, in the global elements, what I did, I used import and I gave shared flows app.xml. So I'm asking it to import. Then in the main flow, what I can do, I can use flow reference. See here in the drop down, you will be able to see my shared flow. So that's how we can make application which is containing shared flows, and we can add it as a dependency. Okay. So remember one more important thing. Okay. One more important thing. Let's take an example of database module. Database module. So this is my application and I want to use a component called as database component. And I want to use MySQL database or Oracle database or whatever. So when I am using database module in my application, I will decide which jar to use, MySQL jar or Oracle jar or SQL Server jar, right? So I am adding this MySQL as a dependency, right? So I added MySQL as dependency to my app, but this jar, the classes present in this jar should be actually used by DB module also, right? So this jar is whatever is added as a dependency to my application is also required by DB. So I have to add it as a shared library. So let me just show you. I have already added Spring module as a dependency. See here in the pom.xml. In the pom.xml, once I added Spring module as dependency, you can see in the dependencies section, all the Spring related jars are added, and these jars are again shared libraries. So these are also required by application. So they have been added as a shared libraries here. I'll tell you one more example here itself. I'll add database also. I want you to observe. So I'll add database module. Okay. And then I want to just drag and drop select anything like this. Then for this I'll try to configure a connector. Okay. Whenever I'm trying to configuring a connector, it asks for me to configure JDBC driver. So let me do that. So I'll select MySQL. I want to use MySQL database. Okay, then here I need to configure the driver. Add Maven dependency. So I want to add MySQL : MySQL. Tab it. I want to add this MySQL connector 8. Finish. So this will be added as a dependency in my POM. I want you to observe my pom.xml right now. See here in my pom.xml, firstly, MySQL connector is added as a dependency. The version is 8.0.20, and then the same thing is again added as a shared library to my application, right? That is automatically done once you drag and drop. But if you are adding your own modules as dependencies, you need to make sure that you add it as a shared library, right? So that is a concept. So hope now you understood about class loading, how it happens. That's all. Thanks. I'll see you in next video.